So we've already begun to talk about the Pythagorean theorem. So today you're just going to have some simple notes that you can reference when you do practice. The Pythagorean theorem states that in a right triangle, the sum of the squares of the lengths of the legs is equal to the square of the length of the hypotenuse. Basically what this means is what we've already discovered on our own by recreating this image over here. We know that when we add the square A with square B, it equals square C. And that's all that this formula means right over here. So if I say A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And what A and B really represent are the legs of the triangle. So A represents a leg, and B represents another leg, and then C always represents the hypotenuse, the longest side of the triangle. So the side across from the right angle is always the hypotenuse. And it's always the longest side of the triangle, of a right triangle specifically. So now we're going to label the sides and the legs and the hypotenuse of this right triangle. So this is side, we'll say this side's A, or it's one leg. This side can be B, or the other leg. And then this is C, the hypotenuse. And I know that because if I look, it's across from the right angle. Right here, we have our right angle and it's across. It's also the longest side. So the steps for using this formula, you're going to first identify and label the legs and the hypotenuse, and that's not supposed to be in there. Then you are going to substitute the values. From there, you're going to simplify, just like you would with equations. Simplify by combining your like terms and use inverse operations. So for this example over here, I have my two legs, and now I just need to find my hypotenuse. So the equation that we use is A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So A is going to be 3 squared plus 4 squared equals C squared. We are trying to find that missing side. 3 squared is 3 times 3, which is 9, and 4 squared is 4 times 4, which is 16, which equals C squared. 9 plus 16 is 25 equals C squared. We're not done because we just want to find C. So this would be technically the area of a square. If I drew a square coming off of this side right here, that would be the area, 25. But we want to find just this length right here. To do that, we have to do the inverse, which the inverse of squaring a number is taking the square root. So we're going way back to the beginning of the year. And the square root of 25 is 5. So C equals 5. Okay, and if you still don't understand, here's an example of a GIF that is showing you how a squared plus b squared equals c squared works. So we did b squared, there's a squared, and both of them together equal c squared. Notice the two different colors there. Okay, so we are going to do 3 examples, and for all of them we are going to find the hypotenuse, just the hypotenuse. So we're going to use a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So we're looking for the hypotenuse. So I'm going to say this one's a, this one's b. It doesn't really matter as long as you know that these two sides are legs. And you can mix them up, it's okay. So 5 squared plus 12 squared equals c squared. So now I'm going to simplify by what's 5 times 5, or 5 squared, is 25, plus 12 squared, or 12 times 12, is 144, equals c squared. So now I'm going to add 25 plus 144. So 25 plus 144 equals 169, equals c squared. Now remember, we want to find just c, so we have to do the inverse of squaring a number, which is to take the square root. And the square root of 169 is 13. So c equals 13. All right, number 2. Again, we have 2 lengths. We want to find c. We have 2 legs. We want to find c, the hypotenuse. So 2 squared plus 8 squared equals c squared. Now we simplify. 2 squared. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 8 squared. 8 times 8 is 64, equals c squared. Now you add them together. 4 plus 64 is 68, which equals c squared. All right, we're down to that last one where we need to find just c, not c squared. So we got to take the square root of both sides. Because if you had Miss Strobel, what you do to one side, what you give to one sibling, you have to give to the other. So the square root of 68. And this will give us a decimal, and that's okay. So c equals 8.2, and I'm going to round up to 5. So that's c. And it's okay to have a decimal. All right, last one. Again, look here, we have 1 leg, 2 legs. This is the hypotenuse because it's across from the right angle. So we need to find the hypotenuse. So 5 squared plus 7 squared equals c squared. This is c. All right, 5 times 5, 5 squared is 25, plus 7 squared. 7 times 7 is 49, equals c squared. 25 plus 49 is 74, equals c squared. Remember, we don't want just c squared, we want just c. So we have to do the inverse of squaring, take the square root of both sides. Square root of 74 is 8.6. That is our final answer. All right, now you're going to try this on your own.